when you have a well-oiled campaign that does the work for you, you get to go do other
Yes.
things. And that's okay. You can love your business and be really good at it, but it's totally okay to go do other things.
Hey there, CEOs. My name is Brandy Garr, and I am on a mission to help you, the wedding industry entrepreneur, to build a profitable business that you love that does not require burnout, overwhelm, and your constant attention. Welcome to the Wedding Pro CEO podcast. Is organic marketing enough, or do you need to pay for advertising? Back when I started Blush almost 16 years ago, paid advertising through publications was really the only way to get yourself seen beyond your local market. Now we have Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the list goes on. We can do organic marketing through a myriad of ways. But organic marketing takes a significant amount of time, right? We all know Instagram. Right. But we have other options. On today's episode, I'm talking with Mark Chapman. He is going to tell us all about the power of Google Ads. And, Google Ads is something I have not jumped into for Blush, actually, even for my coaching business. And it's so intriguing because Google is still the number one search engine. And if you can come up higher ranked through paying a small amount for ads, it's definitely something that I'm going to be looking into for both of my companies in 2023. And I know that there's so many of you who also want this information. I know you're going to love today's episode. So let's get right into it with my guest, Mark Chapman. Mark, I'm not sure if I can describe in words exactly how excited I am for today, but this is a topic I literally know nothing about. And so when I saw your topic come up, I was like, oh, yes, this is going to be a good episode. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here, and I could talk about Google Ads all day. We won't. We'll keep it short, but there's so much to
Well,
share.
maybe we'll have to do a couple parts of it because I'm sure that there's more to this than what we'll be able to even put a dent
Yeah.
in today. But we, just like you said, are talking all about Google Ads today and how wedding industry entrepreneurs, wedding businesses can really take advantage of this marketing strategy. And really, so few of us in this industry do, myself included. I mean, I've had a wedding business for 15 years. We've literally never even considered running Google Ads or ads because it's so overwhelming,
Yep.
but it can be so, so helpful. So, before we dig too much into that topic, will you just tell everybody a little bit about your background and kind of how you even created the I Do Society?
I will. It's a fun story. So in the early 2000s, I was a wedding photographer, and um, I'm an overachiever. So I wanted to do everything amazingly well. And I got really
Okay.
involved in my business community to make sure that everyone in the world around us knew that our wedding photography studio existed. And I was involved in
Okay.
the Chamber of Commerce and BNI and all this stuff. And in 2009, I won this award for Member of the Year of the Huntington Beach Chamber of Commerce for my contributions to the community. And like everyone knew about me, and it was really
Okay.
exciting. But I came home from this like award ceremony, and I had all these plaques, like the mayor had signed things and the state assemblyman. I came home to my really crappy apartment and realized like, oh, like I'm kind of poor still, and like everyone knows about me. And I'm like, this, like something's not working. Like, how can I be working 7 days a week? The reason I share that and the end of that story is that I realized I was working to communicate with the wrong people. I just need to focus on couples. But I was thinking like, oh, if everyone knows about me, they're going to refer all the couples that want to get married
Right.
or are getting married to me. But that wasn't it. And so I got involved in taking a Google Ads class. And this was before Facebook
Okay.
ads existed, before TikTok even existed. And I got really good at Google Ads. And before long, I kind of had to make a decision if I was going to just focus on helping people with their Google Ads or continue being a wedding photographer. And I chose to continue
Okay.
helping people with their Google Ads. Fast forward like 15 years later, I now have the I Do Society, and all we do is help wedding businesses with advertising using our industry experience as well as our ad platform experience and putting those two together.
Wow, that is an
Yeah.
interesting story. I
And yeah.
my favorite part, I have to say, is that I think a lot of people go through what you just described. You can get all of these awards and you can be so well known in your industry, but somehow still be like, but the money in the bank
Yeah.
doesn't show that, right? And that's
Right.
ultimately what is important about being a business owner is being able to support yourself and to be able to grow your profitability.
Yeah. Yeah. You can love what you do all day long, but if you're
Right.
not making money at it, like, you should be doing something else. Like, why am I not David Tutera? Like, how do I and I think that there's a solution to that. For me, the solution was advertising, which I never would have picked that, but it was.
You said you went to a class and started learning about it. I guess what led you to that thought
Yeah,
to
like, why
start
Google
taking
Ads?
classes on it? Yeah.
Perfect question. So someone I knew in the Chamber of Commerce had a printing business where she printed like banners and signs and things. And she was like, it's like someone put Google ads together for me. When the Google ads are running, my phone rings. And when the Google ads are not running, my phone doesn't ring. And I was like, I don't
Interesting.
know. I'm going to call BS on that. but then I dug a little deeper and like it was true. And so I was like, well, I guess I better figure this out. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so then you decided to kinda teach yourself, and then how did that affect your wedding business, your photography business? Was that true that when you were running ads, it all of a sudden, like, took off?
It wasn't all of a sudden because I didn't know what I was
Okay,
doing. And so I was like,
okay,
just too technical and deep in there, but, like, I was just not doing it correctly, but
okay.
I didn't give up on it and spent a
Mhm.
bunch of money, wasted a lot of money, but I didn't give up on it, and
I
then
know
I
that
remember,
feeling.
like, the day that someone called, like, "I found you on Google," and I was like,
Wow.
I was like, "Oh my god." And which is
This
funny
must
because you
be
shouldn't be like, "Oh my god," but, like, because that's the whole point of it, but it did work, so yeah.
That's so funny, and I'm excited to dig into this from the wedding business perspective. My educator brand, we do run Facebook ads, and I
Cool.
do find it so funny when you realize, like, someone actually found me from an ad, and you're like,
Yeah.
That's so exciting." So I do think that's actually a really fun feeling, even though right, they should be finding you from the ads
It
you're running,
shouldn't be
right?
a
That's the whole point.
surprise. Yeah.
Right, then you had that first person, then as you tweaked and got better at it, how did you find that it changed your business? Like, genuinely, do you feel like it was a trajectory of really growing your photography business?
It was, and I should say, so it was my sister's photography business. She owned it, and I was working for her, but
Okay,
I was kind of like,
got it.
helping her grow in that capacity. So it was our family business, and it changed our business because my sister was also doing like chamber of commerce things and
Okay.
out there, and we got to not spend our time doing that and do other things with
Yeah.
our time. I don't
Mhm.
know if you probably experienced when they start their business that you really work 7 days a week, and you're like, okay, I'm going to hustle, I'm going to do
Yeah.
this, but you shouldn't. And I thought that was a
Right.
badge of honor to have to work all the time. I was like, "Oh, I must be really important." But then, like, you look at your
Yeah.
bank account and you're like, "No, not so
Yep.
important."
You guys, can we all just take a pause for how awesome that was? Like, Mark and I have literally never spoken. We've only ever emailed back and forth. We were introduced,
Yeah.
and this is exactly what I say on the show all the time. We wear overwhelmed and overworked as a badge of honor. It's like if you're in the wedding industry, the most exhausted person at the networking event must be the most successful. I don't want to buy into that. Like, I'm not doing that. It's not going to happen
It's
anymore.
not.
It's not. And there's such
Yeah.
smarter ways to do business. Okay,
Yeah.
let's jump into this. For Blush, my planning company, we've never run paid advertising. I paid ads. We
Mhm.
do paid advertising, right? Or we did. And truthfully, it's because it's incredibly overwhelming. I think a lot of people in the wedding industry feel that way. And why do you think that is?
It's overwhelming because these advertising platforms are built for enterprise level businesses like Target and Starbucks. And
Okay.
there is functionality like algorithms. Like that's a scary word. When you're a wedding florist, like that's a scary word. And
Yeah.
they're so huge and so big and so complex that knowing what to do in them, I think there's like overload. And also it can be expensive if it's not done correctly. And we've worked so hard for our money. Why would I give my
Yeah.
money to Google and not know what's going to happen if I work so hard for this? So
Yeah.
I think they're overwhelming technically. There's money involved,
Mhm.
and we are small businesses that really only need just a small percentage of the functionality of those platforms and should only be
Mhm.
spending a little bit of money. And so, like, how to do that is just scary.
It is really scary. And I think too, there's this, I guess, thought out there that you should know at least a little bit about everything you even hire out. But to be honest, I don't know that I buy into that because I don't really want to know that much about Google Ads. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather have a company like yours be able to say, this is what I need you to do, and this is how we're going to skyrocket your business. Tell us a little bit more about that. What should we know as the business owner before either hiring it out or even looking into it ourselves?
Yeah, I feel like that the answer to that question is like hours long, but I'm going to bring up like a couple of quick points. A lot of
Yeah.
folks, if they do hire it out, hire like a local company that's in their community that knows their community, which is in theory like
Okay.
really good, and they're probably really good people, right? But they
Okay.
don't know the wedding industry. So knowing the wedding industry is more important than that company being local. And here's why. If you
Mhm.
are a bridal store, let's say, your local company might choose to show your ads when people search for wedding dresses, which, okay, that makes sense. I'm a bridal store, I have wedding dresses. But if we really put ourselves in the shoes of that bride who's searching for wedding dresses, she might be just looking for different styles or pictures or like, who are the designers? And so they're going to click on your
Mhm.
ad and spend your $3 and then go back to Google and keep that search going. And
Yeah.
instead, that keyword focus should be bridal store, wedding dress shop, the place they're going to go book an appointment. And that's
Uh,
just one example of bridal stores. There's more examples with venues, or even if you're a wedding photographer, bidding on the keyword wedding photographer, not wedding photography. So
yeah.
there's like a lot of lost money and lost time when you don't know the questions to ask. And it's just a matter of
Yeah.
putting yourself in your couple's shoes and saying, how would they search for my business, who I am, and what I have to offer,
Mhm.
not the product? I
That
got
makes
kind of
so much
technical
sense,
there.
and yeah, but something I totally would have never even thought of. I would have been like, "Yeah, wedding dresses, done. That's
All day
exactly what I
long.
wanna write for." Yeah,
Yeah.
so that totally makes sense. So, I guess Google is still the number 1 search engine. Is that
Oh, 100%.
correct?
Yeah.
I think when people think about ads, a lot of us go straight to Facebook. Tell us why you feel like Google is really superior or different. Why
Mm.
would somebody maybe consider Google over Facebook ads?
I don't think that people actually search on Facebook. Say you got engaged. Thanksgiving, you got engaged. Christmas, you got engaged in like January, you're like starting to search for your venue. I don't know that
Yeah.
people go to Facebook to search for a venue or to find out like, we'll use a bridal store example. You don't go to Facebook to find a local bridal store. Like you go to Google because you want to look at a Google map and find out, okay, what bridal stores are in my city? And so just by the
Right.
nature of what Google is, it's where people go to begin their journey and being present when
Mhm.
they're beginning their journey and finding out about you first. Even if they don't like convert right away, they don't click on your ad and book a tour right away. They know who you are and they'll come back.
Yeah. That's so true. Absolutely. Because you want them to see you in as many places as possible, especially when they're first beginning that search,
Yeah.
right? Like that's so,
Yep.
so important. Okay. So let's say that I want to start running Google ads. Where would you even begin?
We'll talk about money. Everyone in listening is probably thinking like, how much do I spend?
Always.
Yeah, we're just gonna go right there because that's
Okay.
the question. So if you're starting Google ads, it's important to have a little bit of money to work with because when you run ad
Okay.
campaigns on Google, Google gives you all this data. You get to see what people typed into Google to trigger your ad and clicked on your ad. You get to see where people are that clicked on your ad. You can see how many people actually called you from your Google ad. So you need a little bit of data to find out what's working and what's not working. And a great place to start is having a budget of about $500 a month. No matter what your business
Okay.
is, whether you're a big wedding venue or a small one man show wedding photographer, if you allocate $500 a month, you're going to get a whole lot of people to your website. And I know that
Okay.
seems like for some businesses quite a bit of money to spend, but if you don't spend a little bit of money, you won't get data to work with.
Okay, so $500 a month to start. And do you think that is a healthy budget or an applicable budget long term? Or when you say to start, what does to start look like?
That's a great question. So, if you're maybe not in a major metropolis, you might stay at $500 a month. Really, it all comes down to like how many phone calls am I getting from this? And some people, I know actually I was talking with a DJ recently who was like, I want to book 15 more events next year. I don't
Mhm.
want to like go crazy next year. And that's okay. So,
Yeah.
like, you can take that little bit of money and spend it and then maybe even turn it off if you're booked up and you're good.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so there's no wrong answer. It's a lot based on data.
Okay. Well, if you can figure out what the conversion is, right? Once you kind of
Mhm.
play with the data and you start to see what works, if you know that for every dollar you put in, you get two back, you
Right.
would just put a whole lot of dollars, right?
It is. Google gives you a ton of data. You can measure how many phone calls, how many people filled out the contact form on your website, how many people booked a tour, how many people booked an appointment. And the measurement is it's not perfect because there's a lot of privacy laws in place which are really good for consumers and so the data is not perfect, but at the end of the day you can come away with an idea of like what did I get from this money that I spent? And us as small business owners too, like we know when the phone's ringing, and usually if it's a referral from someone who's worked with us in the past, they come in like, "Oh, Brandy referred me and I'm so excited to be here." And they say that first thing. But then you get these
Right.
like colder calls from Google where they're like, "Hi, what's your packages?" or "What do you have? What dresses do you have?" or whatever.
Right.
And like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this person doesn't know us." And that's okay because it's an opportunity
Yeah.
to teach them and convert them. So just being a small business, which most folks I'm sure who are listening are, like, know that rhythm of the phone and what people are talking and asking about on the phone.
Okay, that makes sense. And I love too that it's kind of like, okay, well, at any point, if you feel like we're actually getting too many phone calls, right? Then you can just turn it off and take a break,
Turn it off.
if
Yep.
you're at capacity, which is wonderful. So we were talking about that $500 a month to start because I know people are thinking this. How long do you think it typically takes to gather enough data to where you are starting to say, this works, this doesn't, let's pour some gas on this?
It can work right away. Like, if you have a really good ads campaign created and you know what you're doing, like, you can turn the ad campaign on and people can call that day. But if you're doing
Wow.
it yourself, there's a lot to learn, and that's okay. And it's totally okay to do it yourself and go through that learning journey. So I would say, like, give
Sure.
yourself a couple months, like 3 months,
Okay.
to start figuring things out. Because again, there's that relationship between if you spend more money, you get more data and you learn things quicker. But if you don't spend as much money, you have to have more time.
Right, which totally makes sense, and I do think it feels a little bit in the beginning like, "I don't know where this money is going," but it's paying for the data. So what about for wedding professionals? How do you consider making sure you're not getting calls from, like, all over the country?
And so you can set location targeting by zip codes, you can set it by cities, you can set radiuses,
Okay,
you can get really specific with your location targeting. You can also create 2 campaigns. You could create separate campaigns for different geographic places, and you could find out,
okay.
"Hey, am I getting more leads from Toledo or am I getting more leads from Cincinnati?"
Oh,
And you can use that conversion measurement to find out where you're getting the best return on investment is from. You could even say, "Hey, I wanna do more work in Toledo." So maybe I'm not in Toledo, I'm nearby, but I want to do more work there. So I'm going to use my ad campaign to reach more people there to build my business there.
and really, again, it all comes down to measuring data. Whether you're hiring it out or reviewing it yourself, really being involved in that data is important, right? To be able to
It is.
understand what's working, what's not working.
Whether you do it yourself or whether you hire it out, you need to have some sort of finger on the pulse of the data.
Yeah, it makes sense in that. When you're working with a wedding professional, do you need them to be somewhat involved and here's what we think is working, here's what's not, or are they hands off?
They're more involved in the beginning. I always share with folks when we get started, like, we're going to need some time and attention of yours. And that's going to be really well invested time and attention. And then it'll get easier and you'll get to know your business as it goes on. It does take time and attention in the beginning, but it's well spent.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what would you say, Mark, are a couple of components for a great ad campaign in Google?
Okay, one super important component, if you can do it, is to have an offer with your ad campaign. I'm going to give an
Okay.
example. So, if you're a wedding venue and you're running a Google Ads campaign and you want to reach couples who are searching for a venue in your area, say you're an outdoor wedding venue, like outdoor wedding venue, get $1,000 off your booking. That's your ad. People are like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
$1,000 off. I like saving money." And they
Done.
click on that ad and they go to a page on your website about your venue and about how to get that $1,000 off. And you say, put your name and your
Okay.
email address in here. You'll be eligible for the $1,000 off. There's no commitment to book our venue, but if you want the $1,000, you put your name and your email address here. And pairing that search intent with that offer and that landing page generates a lot of leads and a lot of quality leads too, because you might be targeting the right zip code. Maybe there's an affluent
Yeah.
zip code that you want to target in your area. You're targeting by age range. You're targeting maybe by income level or gender or things like that. So you're targeting the right audience and then you're offering them something that will make their life easier. And you're giving them a way to get that by putting their name and their email address in. And bada bing, bada boom, you have some leads.
That makes total sense. Have you ever seen it work if you give away something, like, in addition to instead of a discount? Does it work as well or not necessarily? Like, you could get RSVP management with your event management package.
It really depends on the business, and there's no wrong answer to that question. It's something
Okay.
that's worth
Okay.
testing. What we have found is
Yeah.
that People are really motivated by money, whether you're an
Yeah.
affluent person or not an affluent person, like you're motivated by money either way. So if you
Yeah.
are offering something that's an add-on, communicating the value of that add-on with a dollar sign oftentimes helps people really wrap their mind around it emotionally and in their pocketbook,
Yeah.
and it can't hurt.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, I love the idea of having the offer. Would you then suggest nurturing them in an email sequence, or what is the purpose of having that email?
Definitely. You're gonna nurture them in whatever way you're gonna nurture them, and this is where the ad
Got
campaign
it.
kinda drops off its work. But sometimes there is a way to use these email addresses and names in a remarketing capacity, because you can
Okay.
upload email lists to Facebook and Instagram, and you can target folks, by their email address there. So, that's definitely something that we love, love, love doing, but you need quite a few. You need, like, a couple hundred to be able to remarket with them afterward. Google has remarketing. It's done in display campaigns. Search campaigns when someone types in a keyword and then ads show up that like, oh, you search for wedding dresses, here's an ad about wedding dresses. Google has
Okay.
what's called display campaigns, and those are those super annoying ads that show up all over the internet when you're like reading a news article and there's an image there and you're
Right.
like, nah. You actually can do remarketing with Google ads. And a lot of people just are so over advertised to and they feel an aversion to it, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
if you do something that is like clever and helpful for people in that remarketing ad in a display scenario and you're not annoying them, you're like, hey, helping them make their life better, it can actually work out really well.
Okay. Is there anything that they should be doing in the meantime organically that would make the ads work better?
So there's two answers to this. Your organic SEO, where someone may like work on keywords on your website and things like that, it is completely
Okay.
unrelated to your paid ad campaigns. Google has
Oh,
done a whole lot of work to make sure that if you're paying for ads, it doesn't mean that organically you're going to do any better.
okay.
They don't want that to happen. But there's
Ah,
one bridge here. This bridge is your Google My
okay.
Business listing, especially if you're a local business with a place on the map where people come to you. You can link your Google My Business account with your Google Ads account. And then magically, when people are searching and looking at the map, your business gets promoted in a way that doesn't even look like an ad. And all of a sudden, people are all over your Google My Business. And it's fascinating because I feel like it's borderline breaking, like, advertising laws, but
But
it
I
doesn't look
want
like an
in.
ad. Exactly. As a small business, it's gold. It's absolutely gold, and that's one of the biggest pieces of value that Google Ads can deliver if you have a location. So it's really helpful to
Yeah.
link those 2 things together. So the long answer to your question is making sure your Google My Business account is all
Yeah.
set up and ready to go and looks good.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so do you have maybe a couple of tips that you could give us for the Google My Business listing?
Yeah. First, make sure all the bits and pieces, like your website link is correct, your phone number is correct,
Okay.
which sounds like patronizing, but like sometimes it just isn't and you
No.
forget and like
I mean, how often do you go into it yourself? You don't, right? And
exactly.
then yeah, so okay, so
Exactly.
making
Right.
sure just your basic information is correct is helpful.
Yep. And then taking control of the photos that are on your Google My Business listing. Like other people can post photos, but you can also post photos. So make sure that
Okay.
there are images there that you want people to see. This is a lot easier for like a venue or bridal store because you have like a place or a product. But let's say you're a photographer or a DJ or someone else, you could post photos of yourself with your couples. So people see, okay, this
Oh,
is a DJ with the bride and groom, and they get the idea, the visually that connects, like, who is this? Oh, this is a fun person. I like them. There's warm, fuzzy feelings already. Doing as much as you can to get a lot of Google reviews, it can be kind of like
okay.
a mind numbing exercise. Be always chasing people down and asking them to review. But the number of reviews makes a difference. And so don't worry too much
Yeah,
about the bad ones if you can get larger quantity of good ones as well.
that makes sense. Is recency of reviews important as well?
I'm so glad you asked because yes, right? I got married in 2019 and like, oh, well, that was before the world went to
Right. I don't remember even what I was looking up the other day, but I went to look at the reviews and none of them were within the last 3 years, and I was like, "Is this place even still open?" I'm not sure, like, it made me think maybe it wasn't. And then I wanna pop back to photos for just a second when you said you can and should control the photos. We again, we didn't really go Google ourselves very often, right? And so
Yeah.
we found out from another vendor, that the photo that came up on our Google My Business was one that one of our couples posted, which we appreciated, but really wasn't our style at all. It wasn't necessarily our niche. And
Right.
so he's
Yeah.
actually the one that emailed us and was like, "Hey, you might want to check your listing." And I didn't even realize that you could control which photos really come up first.
Yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
glad you shared that real life example because it's just a matter of going and checking on your stuff. I have a like recurring task on my like project management software to go and look at our things once a month. I look at my website once a month. I look at our
Okay.
listings once a month. And this is not Google Ads strategy, but it makes a difference because sometimes we forget. And I test the forms on my website and things because it like if we don't do that and we're paying Google $500 a month to get people there and like,
Right.
why isn't it working? Well, it's not working because your form doesn't work.
That's really important. I also think before you start pouring money into ads, and by pouring, that's obviously it can drizzle or you can just let it overflow.
I love
But
it.
before you put
Drizzle.
any money into ads, I think it's really, really important that you do exactly what Mark just said, which is to go check that everything's working and that your funnel is correct. Go through your funnel as a customer, fill out the form, go try to use your calendar link. Make sure that everything's working and making sense because if you just start pouring money to something that's broken, it's not going to work. So you might as well check that first before you start running ads. Any other tips, Mark, that you want to share with our listeners about the possibility of running Google ads?
Yeah, my last tip is that there are a lot of like automations and functions that Google offers for small businesses. And the
Okay.
word that bounces around, if you see this, you might even be in like your Google My Business account and see smart campaigns is the phrase that they use. And avoid those like the plague. Smart campaigns are Google's way of like taking some money from you and making you feel good about thinking you're doing something, but it's automated and it's not based on a human's understanding of the wedding industry or your business. And if someone is running ads for you and they're like a local business or whoever they are, ask them what
Yeah.
type of campaign it is and ask if you can go in the account and see and find out is this a smart campaign, because sometimes these local companies are well-meaning and they might do SEO and paid ads and web development and all the things, but they're not really good at any of them. And like their checkbox for Google ads is, oh, I'm just going to run a smart campaign because Google's going to take care of it for me. It's a guarantee of wasting money. So do a
Oh,
real search campaign, an expert campaign.
okay.
And if you can't put the time and money toward it right now, that's okay.
Mhm.
Save up or wait until you can do it correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been talking also a lot about budgets on the podcast here in this final quarter, as we should all be budgeting and making our budgets for next year. So, you guys, if this is something that you're considering doing, really think about, could I start running Google ads next year? Or even could it be something I budget for fourth quarter of next year? If you budget it now for next year, you can be saving to make sure that next summer you hire an ads manager, you call Mark and his team, or you take a class, whatever it is you're going to do. But that if you budget for it now, then it's not this, oh, I wish I could have done that. Like plan now for the future if you don't have the money now. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but I would think fourth and first quarters would be like the gangbusters time to run ads. Would that be accurate, Mark?
For the wedding industry, first quarter, definitely. What's fascinating about
Yeah.
Google, though, is like if someone's searching on Google in July for a wedding venue, listen, they're
Yeah.
still searching for a wedding venue. And because there's like ups and downs in that volume, sometimes you can spend less if you want to spend less. But first quarter is a really
Yeah,
important one.
that makes sense. And then one last question to kind of button it up, just because I'm super intrigued by this. I'm sure there's someone out there listening going, Brandy, ask this question. What can you expect your return on investment to be post the data figuring out phase? Like, is it, $2 on every dollar, $5 on every dollar? And there may not be an exact answer to that, but what should we consider?
So I would say like if you could shoot for like a $20 cost per lead,
Okay.
and when it's a quality lead, you can turn that $20 into a lot of money depending on
I
what your
mean,
business is.
right.
Because you're literally saving so much time. Google Ads in your website are doing the work for you, and that is so
Right.
powerful, where you get to go spend time with your kids. It all kinda circles back to my story in the beginning. When you have a well-oiled campaign that does the work for you, you get to go do other
Yes.
things, and that's okay. You can love your business and be really good at it, but it's totally okay to go do other things.
Oh, Mark, I mean, you're speaking the love language of this show. Like, it just
Yay,
absolutely
good.
is We don't give into the hustle culture here. You want to build a profitable business that you love, and you cannot love your business when you're a slave to it. You can't. You're going to burn out. And so,
Yep.
really understanding how to drive leads. I will say one of the coolest things that I noticed is that I can be literally having dinner with my family and see sales come in because it's
Yeah.
all automated for us on the back end, right? And that's taken a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of money, but it has been amazing, the payoff. So exactly what you just said, I can vouch for that feeling of just like, wow, like it's working and we're not out there hustling for it, you know? So
It's
I
so
love that.
beautiful. And when that first happens, my experience with that was like, "Is this okay?" Like, it doesn't feel right.
Right.
And then, "Oh, I
Yes.
guess it is okay." Like, I don't have to feel guilty about not staring at my computer screen all day long. Like, that's okay.
You know, a lot of us pay some of the major publications a lot of money to advertise with them, and being able to maybe consider putting some of that money towards more targeted to your demographic and people that you specifically are going after might be a better use of your money. It just might. So, just a thought out there for anybody wondering how they're going to come up with this money. Mark, this was so awesome. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with the I Do Society, with your team, and where they can find you online.
Yeah, it's the idosociety.com. It's got all the information about how we help businesses and our focus on advertising. Just visit the website and have fun and journey and explore there.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, you guys, go give them a visit, drop a line, say hi, tell them you heard them on the Wedding Pro CEO podcast. And Mark, thank you so much for being here. This was great.
It's my pleasure. I loved it.